Let me ask you something. What if one of the richest men in America told you the best investment you can make is toilet paper? Yeah, you heard that right. Not stocks, not crypto, not some shiny new tech startup. Toilet paper. It sounds ridiculous, right? But that's exactly what billionaire investor Mark Cuban believes. And before you roll your eyes, there's a powerful reason behind it. See, while most people are out here chasing the next hot stock, trying to time the market, Cuban says something completely different. It's really hard to pick the right stock. Sometimes the best investment you can make is being a smart shopper. That line might sound simple, but it flips the entire idea of wealth upside down. Because this isn't just about saving a few dollars at Costco. It's about understanding money in a way that even Wall Street doesn't teach you. And the best part? Cuban didn't come up with this idea after becoming a billionaire. He lived it when he was broke. So how did a guy who once waited tables end up turning his toilet paper logic into a billionaire mindset? Well, that's where this story gets interesting. Because Mark Cuban's secret to wealth isn't about luck. It's about how he thinks. And once you understand that, you'll never look at investing the same way again. Before he became a billionaire sitting on Shark Tank, Mark Cuban was just another guy trying to make rent. Back in his 20s, he wasn't living in some luxury penthouse. He was waiting tables, working odd jobs, and barely keeping the lights on. He's admitted it himself. He was broke, hustling, and completely unsure what came next. But here's the thing. Even when he didn't have money, he had a rule. Don't waste what you do have. Cuban understood early that wealth isn't built from big wins. It's built from 1,000 tiny decisions that keep you from losing. He once said that while everyone around him was chasing get-rich-quick schemes, he was focused on one thing, stretching every dollar. When you're living paycheck to paycheck, you learn the value of every cent. And that's where his toilet paper philosophy was born, not as a joke, but as survival. Because Cuban learned something most people never figure out. If you can control your spending when you're broke, you'll stay rich when you make money. And that mindset never left him. Even after selling his company to Yahoo for billions, he still talks like someone who's afraid to waste a single dollar, because he knows how hard it is to earn one. But this is where things take a turn, because while most billionaires are bragging about their stock picks, Cuban gave the world a very different kind of advice. One that completely rewrites how we think about investing. You'd think a guy who made billions in tech would tell you to pour your money into the next big startup or index fund, right? Nope. Mark Cuban says the complete opposite. It's really hard to pick the right stock, or the right fund, or even the right market. That's coming from someone who literally became a billionaire off one of the biggest deals of the dot-com boom. But instead of preaching about chasing gains, he's warning people to stop pretending they can outsmart Wall Street, because here's the truth, even the smartest investors lose. Timing the market is a gamble, and Cuban knows it. He's watched people bet everything on the next big thing and end up broke. So, what does he recommend instead? Something so boring it almost sounds wrong. He says the best investment most people can make isn't in stocks, crypto, or even real estate. It's in the things you already buy. To him, saving money on something guaranteed, like toothpaste or toilet paper, is better than risking it on something you think will pay off. Because, as he puts it, a guaranteed 40% return on something you're already spending money on, that's unbeatable. And that's the twist. Cuban's version of investing isn't glamorous. It's not about luck or timing. It's about logic and discipline. He's not chasing markets, he's beating them in the simplest way possible, by refusing to lose money in the first place. But if you think this is just about coupons and Costco runs, hold on, because what Cuban says next flips even that on its head. Mark Cuban doesn't believe you need to be rich to think like an investor. In fact, he says the smartest money move most people can make starts in their own home, buying in bulk. Sounds ridiculous, right? But here's the genius behind it. Cuban once broke it down like this. If you spend around $2,000 a year on basic stuff, toothpaste, shampoo, toilet paper, and you find a way to save 40% by buying it in bulk, that's $800 in guaranteed savings. Think about that for a second. That's an $800 return on something you were already going to buy anyway. No risk, no waiting, no guessing. Meanwhile, the average person is out there gambling on stocks that could go up or crash overnight. Cuban's saying, why risk your future on maybes when you can win with certainties? But here's what separates Cuban's thinking from most people. He doesn't see this as saving. He sees it as investing in yourself. Because when you remove financial stress from the little things, you free up your mind for the big ones. It's not just about stacking toilet paper under your bed, it's about stacking peace of mind. And that's something money can't buy, unless you use it wisely. But Cuban's advice doesn't stop there, because while saving smart is part of it, avoiding the wrong kind of spending is what really protects your wealth. And that's where things get real. Here's where most people lose the game. Not in the stock market, but in their wallet. Mark Cuban doesn't just talk about saving money. He warns about how easily people destroy it. And his number one rule? Never buy anything with money you don't already have. He's brutally honest about it. Cuban said one of the hardest lessons he ever learned was when his credit card got cut up. Why? Because he was living like most people, trying to build credit while quietly building debt. He calls it what it really is, a trap disguised as convenience. Think about it. That $800 you save from bulk buying means nothing if you're paying 20% interest on a credit card. You can't outsave a bad habit. And Cuban's advice hits especially hard here. He says debt kills opportunity. Because when your paycheck goes straight to paying off interest, you're not investing, you're surviving. And survival mode makes you desperate. Desperate people make bad financial decisions. That's why Cuban says cash is king. It's not just about having money, it's about having control. He knows most people want to feel like they're doing something smart with their money, but sometimes the smartest thing you can do is nothing. No new credit cards, no risky plays, just saving, slowly and safely. Because while debt gives you what you want now, discipline gives you what you want forever. And that's the real millionaire mindset. But what Cuban says next flips everything again, because he reveals how the smallest, most boring habits can actually outperform the stock market. Most people think getting rich takes some secret formula, insider knowledge, risky trades, or a lucky break. Mark Cuban says that's all wrong. The truth? The habits that make you rich are boring, painfully boring. They're not glamorous, and they definitely don't look impressive on social media. But they work. Cuban says the people who win financially are the ones who make small, smart decisions over and over again. They don't chase trends, they chase consistency. It's stuff like paying cash instead of using credit, buying essentials in bulk to save real money, avoiding impulse spending on things that lose value the second you buy them. Cuban calls it predictable discipline, the one trait every financially free person shares. Because while most people are trying to get rich quick, he's focused on never going broke. That's why Cuban doesn't worship the stock market. He respects the power of daily decisions. He says, the best ROI isn't in chasing profits, it's in avoiding losses. In other words, it's not about finding the next Tesla or Bitcoin, it's about mastering the basics so your money stays yours. And that's what separates the dreamers from the doers. But what Cuban says next takes that idea even further, because he reveals why being a smart shopper might actually beat most people's investment portfolios. Now, here's the twist almost no one sees coming. Mark Cuban, a billionaire investor, says that being a smart shopper can sometimes beat investing in the stock market. Sounds crazy, right? But here's his logic. Most people pour time and energy into trying to predict which stock will go up. They watch charts, read analysis, and chase expert advice, and still 90% of them lose. Why? Because markets are unpredictable. But saving money? That's a guaranteed return. Cuban puts it this way. If you can save $800 a year by buying things you already need, that's an 8% return on $10,000 income, risk-free. Try finding that kind of consistency in the market without losing sleep. He even points out that platforms like Amazon or warehouse clubs make it easy to invest in certainty. When you bulk buy, you're locking in future savings. No volatility, no Wall Street middlemen, and that's what makes this advice so powerful, because it flips the entire definition of investing on its head. Cuban's saying the best ROI isn't always in the market. Sometimes it's sitting right in your pantry. It's the toothpaste, paper towels, and laundry detergent you know you'll use, not the stock tip you hope will hit. And that's why his advice resonates with everyone, from broke college kids to millionaires, because it's not about how much you have, it's about how well you use it. But Cuban leaves viewers with one last lesson, and it might just be his most important rule of all. Here's the part everyone misses about Mark Cuban's success. It's not luck. It's not timing. It's not even about making $1 billion. It's about how he thinks about money. While most people chase the next big thing, Cuban obsesses over the basics: save before you spend, avoid debt like the plague, and make every dollar work harder than you do. That's the mindset that took him from a broke 20-something sleeping on a couch to owning the Dallas Mavericks and investing in groundbreaking startups. He never pretended to be smarter than everyone else. He just made fewer dumb mistakes. That's why he laughs when people look for a secret formula. Because in his world, wealth isn't about luck or talent. It's about habits. Simple, boring, unsexy habits that stack over time until they change your entire life. When you see Cuban today, confident, calm, and in control, that's not because he picked the right stock. It's because he picked the right mindset. He figured out what most people never do. Financial freedom isn't about getting rich. It's about staying smart. So the next time you're tempted to gamble on a hot stock tip or max out your credit card for something you need, remember this. Mark Cuban says the smartest investment might already be in your handy. Maybe it's not a share of Tesla or Apple. Maybe it's just a smart choice, repeated 1,000 times until your bank account finally catches up. So if you ever feel like wealth is out of reach, remember, it's not built in Wall Street offices. It's built in everyday decisions. That's the Mark Cuban way.